I actually had taken a class on how to use references when I was around 16 or 17. I was taking classes in order to develop my portfolio for college applications. And even though a lot of the art that I made in those classes were really bad and worse than my personal work, I learned a lot. The classes were formatted in little groups of tutoring, and we had multiple students, but it was a small group, and we mostly learned art fundamentals, so shading, lighting and shadow, drawing, how to draw 3D shapes and stuff. And one of those fundamentals was actually how to use references. So yeah, it absolutely should be one of your foundations. I don't really understand when the art community is oh, using reference is cheating. It's genuinely should be one of your foundations. If you really want to work in the art industry, you're gonna have to know how to use references. I actually had a really hard time struggling to use references, and these last 3 to 4 years I was just using references, but it was I was overcomplicating it in my head. So I would try to use, look up a reference and try to do something similar, but not exactly, which I guess it's kind of the point of references, but to use them effectively, especially when you're new to using them, you kind of have to copy them exactly. And you'll kind of see what I mean while I draw in the speed paint. But here I have two different references, main photo references of a tree and this statue. I'm not quite sure. I'm sure this is a very famous statue. I got both of these pictures from Pinterest, and I'm just straight up copying them. One of the reasons I felt that it was okay to copy these references is because they're pictures of real 3D objects. So you're always gonna have a different picture from a different angle of each of them, so it's not just you're copying another artist. Of course, copying another artist is okay if you disclose it, but to me, when I'm using references, it's better also because you might think that an artist has perfect anatomy in their art, but sometimes they exaggerate it in order to make it look more realistic or look cooler, right? So it may not be exactly correct, and especially when you take it out of the context of their art in that specific illustration, it might start to look weird. And even if you do it right, you might feel oh, why does it look like this? But if you have a photo reference, it's fine, And a statue is also sometimes distorted, but it's designed to be able to be seen from every angle. So it has to look correct in every angle. And I thought this statue in particular was really cool. I also have a third reference, as you can see, that's of Link from Tears of the Kingdom, because I wanted to depict him in this sort of form where maybe he's maybe he just had a fight and he's in kind of a comatose state or something. But yeah. But anyway, how I was using references before was kind of strange. I would maybe get a picture of a sculpted lamp or something, and I would get multiple pictures of lamps, and I would try to design something completely new that's sort of inspired by them. But that wasn't really how I was supposed to be using the references. I was supposed to be copying them exactly. And I think and maybe cutting the picture up in parts. It's kind of you're supposed to be using references photo bashing instead of as inspirations. And a lot of the problem too was that my fundamentals and values was really lacking, because I hate painting. At least I still hate painting now, but I hate painting specifically just painting straight from color. So I like values. I like values. I like painting in black and white. And a lot of my problem that I had, or a lot of the problems I had with painting, was just like, it's too much multitasking. Like, I don't know which colors to pick in the value yet, like right now. And I really just didn't enjoy it. Like, a lot of people I see online, they really enjoy the process of like figuring things out and using color, but I don't particularly like gravitate towards color. I think the most interesting thing about color is its value, like the lighting that it can express. And I like, saturating some parts, but like, you can saturate parts when you're just using value and doing a color overlay, and that's the most fun part of it for me. So maybe if you're having, trouble doing painting practices because it's just like so tedious, then maybe try doing the value method, where you do just a value drawing or a painting, and then you do a color overlay and color over it. So why might you even want to use references? It might be your question. And I think when you're like a beginner artist, or you haven't really worked in the professional art field, it can be really confusing because you might think that artists are just able to draw anything. Like, nobody is able to draw anything unless they've drawn it before. But in order to draw it before, you need a reference. Like, you need, in order to draw anything for the first time, you need a reference. And when you're working in the art field, sometimes somebody is like, can you draw this? And you've never drawn it before. Or, I've heard like one of the animators on the Spirit Horse movie. You guys know what I'm talking about. But from that, an animator from that movie was saying, I hadn't really drawn horses before, but then I drew horses like 1,000,000 times for that movie, and now they can draw horses really well. But he used references to study horses. You need to use references, and sometimes, or in the beginning, you need to directly copy them, because you need to get your mind used to the whole body, to the whole object of what you're trying to copy and study. And in order to do that, you just have to go piece by piece, replicating each part. So references, when you're making art and also studying it, you need references. But you might also think, okay, why does somebody in the professional field need references? A lot of the time, you need references to just bring your art to the next level. Like, a lot of people, to avoid copyright issues, just take pictures of themselves, take pictures of the things they need themselves, so they don't have to like worry about a certain photograph being recognized. Everything's completely original. And photography is an art. Everything, as long as it's produced by you, it's completely yours. It's not cheating to create an art piece based on a photo. It's really not. And sometimes, like, you won't even know about a little detail that you need. Like, what if your picture, like this specific drawing I'm doing of Zelda right here, or of Link right here, oh my god, is, I wouldn't know how to draw like this specific leg angle of where his leg is going down and his knee is down. It's exposing the top side of his leg, and the perspective of his calves and his foot. Like, maybe I wouldn't know about that. Or even like the underside of the armpit. If I haven't drawn it before, I would rather do it accurately than just guess and do it wrong, because you need to learn it eventually. Like, you're gonna have to draw that angle again sometime, and when I do that angle again in the future, I'll know, and I'll be able to do it quicker because I've done it before using a reference. I'm also doing like a semi-realistic style here, but this also, like, using references also applies to when you're trying to do like a simpler style, maybe like a cartoony style or like an anime style. Sometimes when you're drawing a certain angle, it's difficult. Like if you're trying to draw a top-down angle or a bottom-up angle, anything extreme is going to be very hard to replicate just from your imagination, unless you've drawn it before. And honestly, like, using a reference in those cases makes the drawing look better. It makes the drawing look more finished. It makes the anatomy look correct, and as a result, it looks more professional. And really, like, the studios and whatever, your clientele, they don't care what your process is, unless you're, you know, tracing off of something that could be copyrighted. But it really doesn't matter. Like, they won't care. They'll understand it's part of the process. It should be part of your process, like using references. You want to make it look accurate. You want to make it look professional. You want to make it look correct. Now, if you've done enough reference studies of one thing, then, or you have an amazing memory and you remember everything, like Kim Jong-il. That's why everybody, like, he has the skill, of course. He has the skill of, like, creativity, coming up with, like, storylines. You know, he's a great storyteller in his drawings, and that's part of why he's so famous. And he has a great, like, control over his pens, his art supplies, and that's why he's famous. But most notably, why he is the most famous is because he has a great memory. He remembers every detail. So he remembers, like, he knows how to draw it accurately. He has a great sense for proportion. It's almost like he looks like he's tracing, you know? And it's probably because he is tracing in his mind. Like, he has the ability, his memory is so strong that he has the ability to kind of project what he's going to draw and be able to position, you know, his models in his mind and have a clear idea of where everything is, what everything looks like. So even Kim Jong-il, in a non-direct way, is using references. He cannot create anything that he has never seen before. You can't draw anything that you've never seen before. Every single part of the drawing is something you've seen before, unless you draw, like, scribbles. But even then, like, you've seen scribbles before, you know? It's just lines. Like, if you've never seen it before, it's not going to represent anything too. It's kind of like circular reasoning, but yeah. Okay, so I barely have a script here, and it's my first time doing, like, a YouTube voiceover, so everything's kind of all over the place. But coming back to everything, like how to exactly use references, my process is very straightforward. I find, at least currently, I go on Pinterest and I find, if I want to make the center of an artwork, I find a figure. And if there's something in the background I want to add, I find something that fits. This is very important. I find something that fits the perspective of the drawing. And it's important because the perspective being the same merges the two together. It's hard to do this. It's hard to find two pictures that are the same perspective, especially because the dimensions of the pages are different. You might have to scale the figures up and down. It's difficult. This is also part of why a lot of people just take their own picture. But when I'm doing, like, studies, I want to knock one out, you know, back to back, and it's easier for me to just find a picture. But yeah. I'm also doing two things at once in this drawing, where I'm doing a value study as well as a reference study. So a value study, if you don't know, I'm doing like a value kind of grouping study, but also this pen lets me go out of the groups, so I'm just doing whatever I want. But I'm doing a value study, and I'm purposefully leaving the picture not in its black and white form, but in its color form, because I want to be able to see value through color eventually, so I can just like paint straight with color, eventually. It looks like a long way ahead for me, but anyway, it's important that I keep it color. And if I am having a really hard time, which is often the case with like backgrounds for me, but if I'm having a really hard time, then I turn it black and white. And I'm having a value study. When I first did value studies in the tutoring class that I was talking about, I hated it. I hated value studies. I hated value grouping studies. If you don't know what value grouping studies are, it's really important, but essentially it's breaking a picture down into 2 to 3 values, or like 5. You can do as many values as you want, but it's important that they're grouped up. And usually they're small. It's like 2 to 5. So like 2 would be black and white. You need to be able to express the form and light of the picture with just white and black. So you have to choose really carefully. Like, let's say there's a mid-tone on the face, right? Where it's not quite white, but it's also quite not black, but you have to make the call on whether that spot is going to be black or white. And you have to play around and see whether like it works better in expressing the form with black, or it works better in expressing the form in white. You can also do a value grouping study with 3 values, where you have black, a mid-tone, so like gray, and white. So then if you have midtones, you can put the gray. But also that is more difficult in my opinion, because once you start seeing a midtone, like a midtone is a whole different category. It has its own shapes, it has its own rules. A lot of like hard shadow, it's easy to see because it's right under an object. It's like the darkest places. It has a very distinct shape when you look at it. A lot of midtones are melty. It melts into the blacks, it melts into the whites. It's hard to see the hard shape. But it's a very challenging study. Using a brush that allows for a little bit of like opacity, like the brush I'm using right here, makes it much easier, and because you're allowed to make like soft, tones. And I recommend working with that, because when I was first learning value grouping studies and we had to do like 3 tones, it was actual hell. Like using a hard brush with no like opacity, and it has no like edge. The edge is like just straight. There's no texture on it. It was difficult because you have to find the exact shape, and it wasn't fun. Like something being difficult is great, and usually like you don't really have fun unless it's a certain degree of difficult. But it was too difficult. Like it was too difficult, and it felt really like too restricting to me. It felt like I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know enough, and sometimes like you're just not at that level yet. So I recommend, if you're having a really easy time with, you know, like the values, and you start to feel like it's boring and you're using like a brush with texture and opacity, then move on to like a hard brush. And that's like advanced, in my opinion. Like, I saw a picture of an artist on Instagram or something where they made a whole painting, like a color painting, with like, it looked smooth, but it was done entirely by a hard brush, and the art looked amazing, but you could tell their fundamentals were extremely solid. They're at a very high level, and they are still saying this exercise was challenging with a hard brush. Obviously, it's more challenging because they use like color, so, you know, there's another level to that, but it's still challenging. Like, to this artist whose art looked amazing, it was still challenging to them. So I recommend using a brush that has opacity, even though it feels like cheating. Like, I didn't use it when I was in the class because it felt like cheating. I thought that wasn't the point, but you're still practicing values. It still counts. Like, it still strengthens your knowledge of value. It does some of the work for you, but it's also just putting in midtones for you and doing transitions for you. So it doesn't matter. It's fine. Use the brush. Like, don't be too hard on yourself when you're trying to do like value studies. But yeah, like, I hated doing them, and it just didn't make sense to me. You know, a lot of times I see people like start with cell shading and stuff. It's essentially like the same concept. Like, cell shading is so difficult because you need to know shapes, and you need to see the volume. And not only that, you need to make really clear, definite decisions on where the cell shading starts and ends, because it's like, you can't just like cheat it out and express like a softer form with like a tapering, you know what I mean, with making the value just like fall off. You can't do that. It's part of the reason like I'm really impressed with the Breath of the Wild game and the Tears of the Kingdom game. I haven't played Tears of the Kingdom, but I just love the design, you know. It stays kind of consistent with the Breath of the Wild designs, but they do cell shading for everything, and I know that it's like 3D, so they're not hand doing anything, but the style to do it in cell shading, like, it takes a lot of guts, to be honest. Like, I understand that it's less, like, what is it called? It's like computer manpower or whatever. It takes less power, but I think it's harder to execute. It's harder to make the game look good with cell shading because it's more challenging. It's literally just value grouping exercises back to back to back. So you really need to like make the forms look good. You need to make decisions that make sense, you know, that look good. So yeah, I really have nothing else to say, but to conclude and to summarize everything, when you're using references, you should get multiple pictures and just merge them together and copy them exactly. If you do enough references, you can start making them up and drawing them in different perspectives. But at that point, you don't even need the reference. So when you use references, you just copy them, especially if you're a beginner. You need that visual reminder, you need that guide to go off of, and you're using the reference for a reason. So yeah, happy drawing!